What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Free Toaster News Pod. I'm Carlos Caro. I'm here with Toaster co-founder Nick Madrid. Before we get into this week's feature story, I want to remind you, we publish a curated news feed just for you at the intersection of consumer lending, marketing, and technology. It goes out every single Wednesday. Go sign up at thefreetoaster.com. Today, we're going to cover SoFi's earnings. And before we get to that, I want to thank our sponsors, Bulldog Media Group, Fintel Connect, and Spinwheel. Nick, I'm just kind of looking at our notes from the edition. SoFi posted what looked like killer results to me, and we'll get to these in a second. I actually want to put some of these on the screen. I tend to look at personal loans the most, and their numbers were just ripping. They went from and I'm just going to talk their native PL originations. They went from 4 billion to 5.4 billion in total originations year over year. And then when you include the loan platform business, the growth was even stronger. And reading through the notes, particularly Morgan Stanley, they're quibbling around. They wanted to see 25% more margin from the loan platform business. And I'm looking at this. It's a brand new business. It launched about a year ago. Many lenders I talk to in the industry call me and they're like, how is SoFi doing this? Their numbers are incredible. Their brand, like, this is like one of the most admired brands in the category. And they're still trading like 16% down. So I'm really scratching my head here. And we have special guests today. So Rachel Lauren, co-founder and COO at Debbie. Debbie's the first rewards network for the 99%, for those of you that haven't heard of that platform. And she was a former equity research analyst turned VC turned founder. So I think Rachel's profile is awesome. Rachel, so I'm going to hand to you. Like, what was your gut reaction when you were seeing this?
Thanks, Carlos. I think my gut reaction is the same. It's been every single earnings they've had, which is we're for some reason focused on this like sliver. Obviously, it's a very large sliver, but this sliver of the business, and we're sort of missing the bigger story of what SoFi is as a brand, right? They're eating every other financial institution's lunch. Like you look at even the big FIs, like SoFi is just winning hand over fist. And so if you even look at like the financial services segment, right, it's like 40% of their business. And yet we're just focused on this one little LPB sliver. At our company, we drive affiliate traffic for their SoFi Money products, eventually also personal loans, and we like they just have the best conversion and activity of any of the accounts that we promote. And so in my mind, as someone who having been on the equity research side, realizing that people are just like constantly nitpicking about what numbers were expected this quarter and what did they actually hit this quarter, that's really what drives the stock, which is very annoying as someone who is now on the founder side. If I was sitting in Anthony's shoes, I would be very frustrated by that because people are just missing kind of what's happening more broadly. That's really my take.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I think you mentioned best in class conversion. I can't imagine they don't have best in class conversion just by the sheer scale of the loan platform business. So Nick and I were just doing the math earlier ahead of the show. Just on a pure origination standpoint, it's about 36% of all the originations through personal loans is LPB right now. So they're supplementing their buy box by about 50%, right? So your core buy box, you're adding another 50%. My sense is they have because they're a bank, their cost of funds are dialed in. I look at their pricing all the time on sites like Credit Karma, very competitive pricing. They're probably pulling in, positively selected audiences. Their loss rates are probably looking really good. And on top of all of that, they're pulling in an additional 50% that other banks are funding. Like that has to be one of the best in class approval rates.
Yep.
And then that just sets up the whole flywheel of spend on brand, buy performance media, bid the highest on all that performance media because you convert the best. And like it's just going to be really hard to catch up with them if they keep this up.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with that or like what else you would say.
I'm with you. I think if I was going to play devil's advocate, I think the only thing I would maybe say has actually absolutely nothing to do with their business at all is if you're worried about the macro environment, then yeah, sure, like lending in general is gonna be depressed. The thing is, though, is that their business, if we look back at, let's say, like 2022 and what happened with Upstart, right? Like they were the darling of lending for before 2022, right? Everything was great, and they had the similar business model, right? They were selling off the loans, and everything was wonderful, and then the market changed, rates went up, and everything went to crap, and they were not diversified at all, right? That was their entire business. Meanwhile, SoFi, they're an incredibly diversified business. They've got the technology platform. They've got financial services. They've got all these other areas of the business. And yeah, sure, like you can make the argument, in a tough macro environment, they're not going to fare well, but neither are any of the banks.
Hmm.
So maybe that's a broader discussion about kind of what's happening in the economy. But I think if I was comparing them to any other financial institution trade, like this is the horse that I would be betting on.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, and just to talk further about their diversification, um, we have to just start by acknowledging the scale of the personal loans business right now. So 8.3 billion in Q1 26. That's darn close to 3 billion per month. And I talk to lenders all the time that are stoked when they get 300 million or 500 million months. And these guys are like 6x that. And it's all happening within the context of like a diversified
Yeah.
business, right? You see student loans at 2.6 billion, home loans at 1.2. They've somehow managed. I was looking at, this was mentioned in the report. They have 450,000 card holders. I don't know where these card holders are coming from because I don't see their product promoted almost anywhere. But I'm guessing it's like that's probably in-app cross-sell where they're spending.
Upsell, yeah.
Yeah, it's like zero CAC, 450, like, so that's not nothing. 500,000 card customers. That's probably pretty profitable at a zero CAC. So the scale of the business is staggering, and yeah, it's happening within like a diversified
Yeah.
strategy. So yeah, they're gonna be tough to catch.
And now with student loans also, if rates, obviously we're in kind of a limbo mode right now when it comes to rates, but if you look at government held student loans, the delinquency has shot up like crazy this past quarter. So that may or may not spell opportunity for them in terms of student loan refi. If people are struggling to pay, I don't know what the rates look like there versus what people would otherwise be paying. I'm assuming the rates they're paying to the government are pretty low.
Let's change gears here because Anthony did a bunch of Q&A on marketing, which I wasn't expecting. Like he was really getting into like what channels they're using across different business lines. I found it interesting. So maybe we can jump into that and see if either of you have any comments. But the first thing that they started talking about was their unaided brand awareness. So it's at an all-time high. It's at 10%, up 300 basis points from a year ago. So I always had a feeling their brand investments were top-notch, but this number was, I was a little surprised, to be honest. 1 out of 10 people in the wild, when you ask them what consumer finance brands can you think of, mention SoFi. That's a crazy number to me, given they're up against the Amexes and the Chases of the world. I don't know, Rachel. What do you think?
Well, so they've got my Wall Street BFF, right? Already, like, great person to connect
Okay.
to.
Yeah. How long has that been going? Do you know?
I don't know. I think maybe like a year and a half, maybe longer.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Time flies.
Okay. I follow her stuff a lot too, and I know she's doing really well.
And they also just announced like a campus tour across like a bajillion different campuses that they're going to take her and do like some financial education seminars on at colleges. So yeah, they're doing all the right things. They're partnering with the right people. They've continued to build out the affiliate side pretty dramatically alongside that. I don't see, in terms of their marketing, I don't see any flaws. I think we sometimes get users who will call them Sophie, which is funny.
I've not heard that. I'm way too inside baseball-y in the industry to
Yeah.
ever or to likely hear that, but
We get a lot of
I
SoFi.
would definitely chuckle if I heard a SoFi.
Yeah. I don't mind. I mean, it's fun. Debbie
Yeah.
and SoFi. I like it.
Nick, I know you like to poke around in the earnings transcripts. Is there anything that stood out to you when you look through it?
Yeah, so there's two things that stood out. One, and I'll just read a quote. Our personal loan borrowers have a weighted average income of 154,000 and a weighted average FICO of 745, while our student loan borrowers have a weighted average income of 161,000 and a weighted average FICO of 767. So clearly the borrowers, they're still reaching prime. We know the loan platform business is going to give them access to probably lower subprime kind of borrowers. And then the other thing I found interesting, and I would love to dig deeper, not on this call, but on a different call. And it says, for example, we're rolling out our personal loan doc coach, which uses AI to validate members' pay stubs and other documents, streamlining the application experience and driving cost savings over time. So I would love to riff on this whole idea of the actual internal operations side, be able to grow, with scale and efficiency. Is just super fascinating to me as well. And that was one of the tidbits I pulled from the transcript. And then the only other thing when thinking about technology is, one big part of their tech platform business, which is Galileo, they had Chime as a customer, which fully migrated over and off of Galileo to their own system of record. And so they lost that massive piece of business. They knew they were losing it. It's been in the works for many, many years. But just trying to understand that tech platform business, I think, is really interesting. I'm curious, Rachel or Carlos, do you have any sense on where that business is going?
So in my mind, right, SoFi's trying to take all the technology that they've already built for themselves and obviously farm it out to others, which is great. All power to them. I think there's, again, going back to what is the street seeing versus like what's actually happening in the business. I think it's something that a lot of the street is putting a big emphasis on because, theoretically it's higher margin business, right? It's like SaaS revenue. They just value that higher. So they're like, okay, where are you going with that? And so, the investor relations brain in me is saying, oh, how do we prop that up? So they launched they got approval for a stable coin. They have Galileo. They have a bunch of other things that they're working on in that business. I don't know that business is ever going to be the majority of their business, right? It's always going to be kind of, this nice high margin piece of the business that's going to continue to fund operations or whatever it is they want it to fund. So I guess, yeah, if I was gonna play devil's advocate also, like what we're missing is like, I think there's just too much emphasis there. Though, I think it's cool that they're trying to do stablecoin now. Let's see where that goes.
Rachel, I haven't heard much of it. What are they doing with stablecoin? This is like an area of the market I've been kind of removed from. So I'd love your 60-second download on what they're doing, why you think they're doing it.
Yeah, basically they're trying to support anyone that wants to launch a stablecoin in their own experience.
Oh, got it.
So I think maybe they'll do their own as well, but they have the rails to
stablecoin as a service.
Exactly, stablecoin as a service. And everybody's talking about stablecoin, and the idea is that, right, you as a consumer wouldn't know necessarily on the front end that it is a crypto, but the whole thing is faster settlement, cheaper settlement. How do we make money movement easier and faster? So I think it's a big opportunity. We'll see where it goes. I think they're out. Obviously they want to get potential new partners for that, and.
All right, so
when Nick and I launch our toaster coin, we know who to call. Though.
Yeah, well, hold on. I want to trademark SCAS. So that is what first you've heard it. So we're going to get this in the ether. We are the ones that define SCAS, stable coin as a service. That's us.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Cool. Well, before we wrap, and Rachel, maybe this is news to you, and would love to see you there. Is we're planning an event in September, September 23rd and 24th in San Francisco, and it will be exclusively senior audience, affiliate marketing for lenders. So that's about 150 people. We've booked the Exploratorium venue. I don't know if you've been there, but it's this beautiful indoor-outdoor space right by the bay. It's awesome. Nick and I were there about a month ago checking it out. And day 2 is going to be in Sonoma. We have this killer vineyard that we're going to have private space on. and we'll only be able to host about 50 to 60 people on day 2. So if you're interested in that, definitely book early. But yeah, we'll be putting up our landing pages and our registration pages probably in the next couple of weeks. But if you're a Toaster Pod listener, we have a special place reserved for you. Just email me. You can use my free toaster email, carlos@thefreetoaster.com. Just put SF event on the subject line, and I'll make sure to hold your seat. And I think that'll wrap the pod for this week. So thank you, Rachel, for coming on and joining us. Appreciate hearing all your hot takes.
Yeah, and I will see you.
If we can lean on you for, color commentary every time SoFi does earnings, we'd love to have you again. So, that's a wrap. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.